Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, yay, the new Dvořák New World Symphony featuring the Pittsburgh Symphony with Manfred Honeck, and a really significant coupling, I think, by Carlos Simon, although we only find out that his first name is Carlos on page 14 of the accompanying booklet. There's a little bit of layout decisions here that I find puzzling, but that's a packaging issue. Actually, it's beautifully packaged, so I suppose I shouldn't complain, and I suspect Mr. Simon won't either. His four Black American dances, that was Finster. She always gets excited when I talk about Dvořák. So anyway, a really wonderful coupling, a meaningful and sensible coupling, but we'll talk about that in a minute. First, let's talk about the Dvořák New World Symphony. There are, of course, 100 million recordings. Now there are less than 100 million recordings. Oh, my goodness. Oh, gosh, golly. All right, it's in pieces now. And I'm going to have to figure out some way to deal with it because this thing is not going to... I don't know if you can get spare jewel cases for these things. Yeah, it's busted up. All right, great. So I'll deal with that eventually. Anyway, here it is, the Dvořák New World Symphony. Now, there are a million recordings of the New World Symphony. Gosh, I'm an idiot. And this is one of the great ones. It is. And there are many great recordings of the New World Symphony. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a very, very popular work. But one of the things that Honeck and Pittsburgh have managed to do, I think really successfully, is breathe some fresh life into the standard repertoire. I mean, this area, this late romantic stuff, is Honeck's meat and potatoes. He really gets it and knows how to conduct it. He has ideas. They're mostly good ones. In this case, they're just about all good ones, I think. I didn't hear any not so good ideas. It's a performance that makes you pay attention to the music and makes it sound as though it matters. And that is a big deal with this symphony. And it's a big deal with Dvořák generally because he tends to be treated as a guy who writes just pretty tunes, gorgeous tunes, beautiful orchestration, but no real depth. That there's no development, there's no intellectual foundation for his music. Everybody sort of takes him for granted because the music is just so beautiful. I mean, I can understand it. And that's what really guarantees its popularity. But this is a performance where Honeck has really thought about the piece and put those ideas into action. I'll give you some examples. The opening of the symphony is very, very gentle. And then the eruptions before the allegro, very dramatic. The allegro moves at a swift pace. It's exciting. The horn playing from Pittsburgh is gorgeous. It's fabulous. In the first subject, he really slows down for the famous second subject, plays it with a lot of romantic, schlag, which it deserves, it needs, it's what it is. It sounds beautiful that way, especially when the strings come in with the ya da da da, ya da wa bum ba. Just very gentle, but he gets back to the allegro. It's marvelous. It's just wonderful. I mean, the music can absolutely take that kind of freedom and flexibility of pulse. It's fantastic. The opening of the largo is beautifully phrased by the brass. I mean, it's like in two big arches. The English horn solo is gorgeous. The tempo is very, very slow. I mean, it takes about 13 minutes. It's quite slow. It's not crazy Bernstein's second recording, crazy slow, but it's very slow, very hushed, with big dynamic contrasts and the fast outburst towards the end. It's really, really beautiful, and deep. It makes you listen. It has a hushed spirituality about it. It's really almost Brucknerian, dare I say it. The scherzo again reminds me a little bit of Bernstein because it's very quick. It's not quite as transparent, perhaps, as I would like. All those canonic entries, nobody's going to outdo Klemperer when it comes to things like contrapuntal clarity and audibility of woodwind parts. But it's exciting. It's really exciting. And so is the finale, which is, rather than trying to disguise the fact that it's a little bit of a patchwork, this finale. It's got lots of episodes and lots of thematic material. Honeck shows that by treating each section lovingly and giving it its own identity, the music actually hangs together better because it has contrast, it has variety. There's no embarrassment in the fact that it's a big cyclical finale with all the tunes coming back from all the other movements. He really nails that violent climax towards the end where the chorale from the Largo comes back loudly with the pounding timpani underneath. It really makes it sound threatening. You have to remember that this is not a happy ending, particularly, or it's certainly equivocal. People talk about homesickness and nostalgia that Dvořák must have felt for his homeland and all of that stuff, and that's there, I'm sure. But the point is that the symphony has its own emotional, and expressive trajectory, and Honeck really brings that home. The big climax at the end is really grinding those dissonances, and he really hangs on to that final soft woodwind chord after the last bang, and for a long time. And that's what you should do. In other words, it makes you think about where the music is emotionally at the very end, and it, I think, helps to remind us of the originality of that ending as well. There's no other symphony that ends quite like this one, and it's very, very beautiful. And that last chord in the winds is just so perfectly tuned. Oh my gosh, it's just lovely. Now, so it's a great recording of the New World Symphony, and very beautifully recorded. And I had talked about, remember how, what can we expect from live recordings versus studio recordings of old, because this is a live recording, but it's put together from 3 performances, or it seems 3 performances. So whoever engineered it obviously took the time to try and get it right, to put together the ideal performance. At least I hope that's what they thought they were doing. It seems that is what they were doing. That's the audible result. Now, Carlos Simon. Carlos Simon is an African-American composer who is composer in residence at the National Symphony in Washington, D.C., which has recorded a fine disc of his orchestral music, which we may talk about anon. He's a serious voice. And, he does a lot of stuff that has to do with, African-American heritage, which people will, of course, poo-poo and say, oh, it's also woke and all politically correct and all that. But he writes good music. And that is, I think, what matters even more deeply. Time will tell whether he is going to be, a Black American composer or a American composer who happens to be Black. There is nothing wrong, in my view, with his exploiting, or I want to say exploiting because that always sounds so smarmy, but yeah, it's exploiting in a good way. Investing in music that is depictive of his experience, the experience of Black Americans, his reputation, or his own background in history. His father is a preacher. He comes from Atlanta with a background in gospel music, the same music that Dvořák actually heard in composing the New World Symphony. So rather than just being a sort of politically correct thingy, the inclusion of his music, contemporary Black American music, is, I think, entirely appropriate to a performance of Dvořák's New World Symphony if you're going to explore it from that angle. And of course, the symphony welcomes a variety of explorations, whether it's just the Bohemian, Dvořák the Czech composer, or Dvořák the African-American composer. It's always been controversial with respect to the symphony, but I think this is a wonderfully grounded and interesting coupling. The music itself is delightful. It's 4 movements: ring, shout, waltz, tap. Tap dance is really rather amusing for 1 minute and 44 seconds, and the holy dance at the end. Very, very lovely music. And should be a concert piece. I mean, people would have a great time with it. It's just fun to listen to, and a wonderful coupling to the Dvořák New World Symphony. So it's a very, very good, well thought out, excellent program from in all respects. Musically, it's fantastic. So you'll be happy to get to know Carlos Simon when you find out his first name on page 14. The Dvořák is glorious, and the whole production is simply first class. What else is there to say? Nothing, except listen to it. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.